Hello again, Riverland Central. It's Dave here. I'm here with Sue, and today Sue is telling her testimony, her story about a really sad thing that happened in her life, but how that actually brought her back into church. So welcome, Sue.
Thank you.
It's great to have you. So something really sad has happened in the last few years, hasn't it?
Oh, yes. My mum came to live with me. She was getting old and she was very frail, and while I was caring for her, I couldn't leave her alone, so I was very housebound. So I was out of church for a year and a half.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was that like being out of church? Was that easy or was that difficult?
Oh, no, that was difficult. It was very difficult. But you sort of get used to it, and I can see now how people can actually slip away from the church and quite unintentionally slip away from the church, because I had no choice. I couldn't leave Mum alone, so I couldn't go to church.
Yeah.
But the longer it went on, the easier it got to not go.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Sure. So tell us the story about what happened.
Well, my mum was 95, 96, and she'd been living with my brother and my sister-in-law, but as she got older and frailer, she needed more personal care, so she came to live with me, and I did everything for her. My whole world revolved around her.
Sure.
And she, because she couldn't go out. I was totally housebound. Shopping would be, I'd order stuff online and then just nip across the Wallis, and thank goodness there's just across the road. So it made it very easy that way. But then Mum had an accident in the middle of the night one night. It was actually the 10th of October because it's my brother's birthday. And as we were booking Mum into hospital later that day, I said to him, "Oh, by the way, happy birthday." So she fell, she broke her arm in the middle of the night, and as I picked her up and put her back to bed, she showed me, "I'm not going to hospital." So I thought, okay, she didn't scream when I picked her up from the floor, so she probably hasn't broken anything, but she'd broken her arm, as we found out later that day. So we put her, she was admitted into hospital, and she was in hospital for 3 weeks, and then they transferred her to the nursing home, and she was in there for another 3 weeks. But before that, I would go back a few steps. I'd always, my mum was a Christian. She'd never actually given her life to the Lord. And even though when I gave my life to the Lord, and I told her, I says, "Oh, by the way, Mum, I got to tell you, I'm a born-again Christian now." And she looked at me and she says, "What? What's wrong with you? You was all right before." I said, "I'm even better now." But she'd never accepted the Lord, and and I was always praying for her salvation, always. And as I shared before, I was going to Israel in 2012, and I got on that treadmill and I was walking and praying so hard for Mum's salvation, because it really, really worried me.
Yeah.
And
something significant happened, didn't it?
Yeah.
As a result of that.
Yes. It was quite exciting, actually. I went to church one Sunday after I'd been on the treadmill and praying and asking God for Mum's salvation. And I went to and greeted my pastor, Robin, and after she gave me a hug and said hello, she grabbed both my hands and she says, "Sue, I've got a message from God for you." She says, "The Lord says to tell you He's got your mum."
Wow.
And I thought, wow.
Yeah.
He hears prayers.
So how did that change things for you when you heard that prophetic
It gave me
word?
such a sense of peace.
Yep.
To know that my mum was going to be with God.
Yeah.
Because even though she had never actually verbally said that she was, that she accepts the Lord and as a saviour, he accepted her into our family.
Okay.
So that was really, it was like a weight off my shoulders, really, because I just couldn't bear the thought of not meeting Mum again in heaven.
Okay, so you now have a reassurance.
I have, yes, I have. It's a reassurance, but within me is a deep knowledge in my faith that I will see her again.
Now, sadly, your mum passed away.
Yes.
And sadly, your mum obviously isn't with you anymore.
No.
What happened next?
Well, one day at the nursing home, and because I always stood on that promise that God made me, so I stopped stressing so much about it because I knew that God had promised me, and God doesn't lie. If He says something, it's not yes and maybe, it's yes and amen. It's a true, firm promise. So my niece rang me from Queensland. Tina's a Christian, and her son's a Christian, and he'd been in church that morning, and he'd been sitting at the back of the church just praying for his great-grandma because he loved her. Mum had been up to Queensland a few times to visit, and she went to Waterworld with them, and he thought it was so gnarly that she got in this boat and went down this great big hill and this was slides. So he really loved his great-grandma. So he was sitting in the church praying for Mum, and he felt God tell him to go down and answer an altar call. And even though he doesn't like to get out of his comfort zone, he responded faithfully, and he went down the front and he sat in God's presence. And he just felt God say, "It's all right. I've got her."
Wow.
So there's two promises. So couldn't tell Mum that because by this time she was totally deaf, and she couldn't read because everything was sort of slowing down and failing. She'd had a cochlear implant, and of course even using that was too hard. Correspondence and interaction with her was very hard. It was a lot of sign language, and if she's going to have an injection, it's just it was very hard. It was a very difficult time.
So tell us the story now about after Mum passed away. What brought you back into a church?
Well, after Mum had gone and we got the funeral and everything all over, and I thought, okay, there's nothing to stop me from going to church again now. So I went I went back to my church, and I just didn't feel right. I went back 3 or 4 times, and I just didn't feel like I belonged there anymore. So then I sort of, because Christmas was coming up, and with Mum's death, I'd done nothing. Christmas Eve was happening in my heart or in my life. And so I thought, okay, I need some Christmas carols, brighten myself up. So then I saw on Facebook that Riverland Central was having Christmas carols on Christmas Eve. What could be better? So I thought, okay, yep, I'm going to that. And I didn't allow myself to talk myself out of it either, because
it can be daunting going back into a place, can't it?
Yeah, and when you're grieving, it's very easy to close yourself off and just say, no, I was going to do that, but no, I can't be bothered. I'm just going to stay by myself. But I pushed myself, and came back to your new building. And even though I'd never been in this building as a church, I'd been in the building as a supermarket, but not as a church. As soon as I walked in that door, I just felt a sense of peace.
Wow.
And that, I'm home feeling. Because, I knew a lot of people from here, from when I was used to attend when you was in Glossop.
Yeah.
and I left there in 2006.
Yep. So you felt a sense of home.
I felt right at home. I just felt
That's
a
great.
huge sense of peace and that return to family, basically.
Wow.
I really enjoyed the carols that night. There was just the sort of carols that I was looking for and that I was needing.
Yep.
Now God had put that deep need of carols and that deep yearning for carols in my heart.
Wow.
To lead me back here.
Yeah.
And look, he put
how are you settling back in now?
I love it. I love it. Can't wait for Sundays. Great messages, great friends, great people, great worship. I love the LTGs and I love soap.
Yeah.
Absolutely love soap.
Well, soap is still going to continue in this current season through the pandemic, and we're really encouraging people to continue meeting in their LTGs as well.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Well, it's been great to hear Sue's story. It's been great to have Sue back in the Riverland Central families. Hope you're having a great Sunday, and we'll see you again real soon.
Okay, thank you.